Have you ever wondered what someone might discover if they secretly watch the person caring for their most precious child? In a quiet corner of Dubai's wealthy business district, powerful Arab executive Khalid Al-Hassan faced a problem money could not solve. His 8-year-old son, Omar, lived in a world of silence, diagnosed with autism that made communication painfully difficult. Therapists came and went, specialists offered expensive programs, yet nothing seemed to reach the boy behind those distant eyes. Khalid loved his son deeply, but long work days and constant travel left him feeling like a stranger in his own child's life. Then one afternoon, through a trusted agency, a Filipino nanny arrived. Her name was Maria Santos, a soft-spoken woman from Cebu who carried a calm presence that seemed almost invisible at first. She spoke gently, moved slowly, and greeted Omar not with excitement or force, but with a quiet smile and a simple hello. Khalid barely noticed the moment they first met. To him, she was simply another caregiver hired to help manage the household. But something inside him remained uneasy. Khalid had learned to trust evidence, not promises. Years of leading large companies had trained him to believe that people often behave differently when no one was watching. So before Maria officially started her duties, he instructed the home's security technician to activate small cameras placed discreetly in the living room and playroom. They were meant for safety, he told himself. But deep down, Khalid was testing something. Could a stranger truly care for his son the way he hoped? During Maria's first week, nothing seemed unusual. Omar spent most of his time sitting quietly, rocking slightly while lining up his toy cars along the floor. Previous caregivers often tried to interrupt him, urging him to play differently or speak more. The attempts usually ended with frustration. But Maria did something different. She simply sat beside him. For several minutes, she said nothing at all. On the camera screen later that night, Khalid watched the footage from his office chair. Maria had positioned herself on the floor near Omar, leaving a respectful distance. Slowly, she began lining up another set of toy cars beside his. Not touching his, not changing his order, just creating a second quiet line. Omar glanced at her briefly, then returned to his toys. To most people, the moment would have meant nothing. But Khalid paused the video and leaned closer to the screen. No therapist had ever tried that approach before. The following days revealed more small moments that puzzled him. Maria rarely rushed Omar. When he refused food, she didn't force him. Instead, she quietly placed small portions nearby and hummed a soft Filipino lullaby while tidying the room. Sometimes Omar would slowly reach for the food minutes later. Other times, he simply listened to the gentle melody. Khalid noticed something else too. Maria spoke to Omar constantly, even when he didn't respond. "Good morning, Omar," she would say softly while opening the curtains. "Look, the sun is here today. We will try again tomorrow." Her voice carried patience that felt almost endless. One evening after a long meeting, Khalid opened the camera recordings again. What he saw made him stop halfway through pouring his tea. Omar was sitting on the floor as usual, arranging his toy cars. Maria sat nearby, watching quietly. After a few moments, she picked up a small blue car and slowly rolled it along the edge of Omar's line. Then she stopped. She waited. The room stayed silent for nearly 30 seconds. Suddenly, Omar reached forward and moved the blue car back into its place. Khalid's heart skipped. It was a tiny action, almost invisible. But it was the first time Omar had responded to someone else's play. Khalid replayed the clip 3 times. The next day, he watched again, and again the following night. The cameras captured many quiet scenes. Maria patiently guiding Omar through small routines, helping him dress, sitting beside him during long moments of silence. Sometimes she would tell him simple stories about her home in the Philippines. "My mother grows mango trees," she whispered once while folding laundry. "When I was small, we climbed them and watched the sunset." Omar didn't answer, but the boy stopped rocking for a moment and listened. Khalid began noticing changes he hadn't seen before. Omar's meltdowns became less frequent. He seemed calmer during meals. Sometimes he even followed Maria from room to room, quietly observing her movements. The transformation was subtle, but it was real. One late evening, Khalid sat alone in his study watching the camera feed again. On the screen, Maria knelt beside Omar holding a simple picture book. Instead of asking him to read or speak, she traced the images slowly with her finger. "Bird," she whispered gently. Omar looked at the picture. Maria waited. "Bird," she repeated. There was a long pause. Then something unexpected happened. Omar opened his mouth slightly. A faint sound escaped, barely more than a breath. "B, B." Khalid froze. His son had not attempted a word in nearly a year. Maria did not react with excitement. She simply smiled softly and nodded. "Yes, Omar," she said quietly. "Bird." Khalid leaned back in his chair, stunned by what he had just witnessed through the silent lens of the hidden camera. For the first time in months, he felt something unfamiliar rising inside him. Hope. But as the nights passed and he continued watching the recordings, Khalid began noticing something even more surprising about Maria's behavior. It wasn't just the patience, or the gentle voice, or the careful way she treated his son. There were moments when she believed no one would ever see what she was doing. And what the hidden cameras captured during those moments would slowly reveal a truth about the Filipino nanny that Khalid Al-Hassan was never prepared to discover. What Khalid saw next began to change the way he understood the quiet woman living under his roof. One evening, the cameras recorded Maria sitting beside Omar long after the household had gone silent. The boy had refused dinner again, pushing the plate away with frustration. Instead of scolding him, Maria quietly carried the food back to the kitchen, warmed it again, and returned with a smaller portion arranged carefully like a little picture. She sat cross-legged on the floor and spoke gently about her home in Cebu, describing the smell of fresh rice, neighbors sharing meals, and children laughing in narrow streets. Her voice carried the warmth Filipinos call simple hospitality. Omar listened without looking at her. Minutes passed. Maria slowly picked up a spoon and pretended to feed an invisible guest beside her. "This one is for our visitor," she whispered playfully. Then she set another spoon near Omar's hand. No pressure, no command, just an invitation. After a quiet moment, the boy picked it up. He took one small bite. Khalid, watching the recording hours later, felt his chest tighten. Therapists had spent months trying to achieve that simple moment. But the cameras kept revealing more. Every afternoon, Maria opened the windows and greeted the security guards and house staff with cheerful kindness. Sometimes she prepared extra tea and brought it outside, saying in her soft accent, "Please rest a little. You work very hard." She treated everyone the same, from the gardener to the driver, always smiling, always grateful. It reminded Khalid of something he rarely saw in his fast-paced corporate world. People valued not for status, but for simple human connection. One rainy afternoon, the footage showed something that made Khalid pause the video again. Omar had become overwhelmed by thunder outside. The sound sent him into one of his difficult episodes. He covered his ears and cried loudly, rocking back and forth on the floor. Previous caregivers usually tried to restrain him or call for help. Maria did neither. She slowly lowered herself to the floor beside him and began humming the same Filipino lullaby Khalid had heard many times before. Soft, steady, almost like a heartbeat. She placed a small pillow between them and gently tapped it with her fingers in rhythm with the song. Not touching Omar directly, just creating a calm space near him. The boy's cries slowly softened. After several minutes, Omar reached forward and rested his hand on the pillow where Maria's fingers tapped. She continued humming without interruption. Khalid sat frozen in front of the screen. No training manual had ever taught that technique. It came from somewhere deeper, something instinctive. As weeks passed, the hidden cameras captured dozens of small acts that slowly built a picture Khalid could not ignore. Maria celebrated tiny victories as if they were great achievements. When Omar stacked blocks without knocking them down, she clapped softly and said, "Very good, Omar. You are strong today." When he followed her to the garden, she introduced him to flowers as if presenting honored guests. "This one is sampaguita," she said once, smiling at the memory. "In my country, we give this to welcome people." Something remarkable began happening. Omar started smiling. Not often, not loudly, but enough that Khalid noticed every time. One evening, Khalid returned home earlier than usual. For the first time, he decided not to watch the cameras from his office. Instead, he quietly entered the house and stood near the hallway where he could hear voices from the living room. Maria was sitting on the floor with Omar again, drawing simple shapes on paper. "Circle," she said gently. Omar tried to copy it. His line was crooked. Maria laughed softly. "That is okay. Mine also not perfect." Then she did something Khalid had never seen before. She bowed her head slightly toward the child and said, "Salamat, Omar." "Thank you." The word surprised Khalid. Why was she thanking his son? Omar looked up, curious. "For trying," Maria explained kindly. "Trying is already brave." The boy stared at her for a moment, then slowly repeated a sound. "Ta." Maria's eyes widened with quiet joy, but she stayed calm so the moment would not scare him away. "Yes," she whispered warmly. "Salamat." From the hallway, Khalid felt tears gathering in his eyes, something he had not allowed himself to show in years. His powerful business empire had taught him control, strategy, discipline, but nothing had prepared him for the gentle patience of a woman who treated his struggling child with pure kindness. Later that night, he watched the cameras again, but this time his reason had changed. He was no longer searching for mistakes or proof of failure. He was learning. He saw Maria kneel beside Omar during bedtime, whispering a short prayer in Filipino before turning off the lights. He saw her teaching the boy to wave hello to the house staff. He saw her celebrate every small effort like a proud teacher guiding her favorite student. And slowly Khalid realized something humbling. The greatest progress Omar had ever made did not come from expensive specialists or complex therapies. It came from patience, respect, and the warm Filipino spirit of care that Maria carried with her every single day. A month later, Khalid made a quiet decision. He called Maria into his office. She entered nervously, worried she might have done something wrong. But Khalid simply thanked her, not as an employer speaking to an employee, but as a father speaking to someone who had helped him reconnect with his own child. Maria smiled shyly and said something that stayed in Khalid's heart forever. In the Philippines, she explained gently, we believe every child just needs someone who will not give up on them. That night, Khalid turned off the hidden camera system. He no longer needed to watch from a distance, because the truth it had revealed was already clear. Sometimes the most powerful change in a home does not come from wealth or authority, but from the quiet kindness of someone whose heart simply refuses to give up.